Welcome to That Annuity Show, the podcast that will make you an expert in explaining annuities to your clients. Give us 30 minutes each week and we'll shave hours from your client presentations. Now, here's your host, Paul Tyler.
Hi, this is Paul Tyler, and welcome to another episode of That Annuity Show. Ramsey, good to see you.
Always glad to be here.
Can you tell us where you are today?
I'm in New York City.
New York City.
Back in my adopted hometown.
All right. Well,
spreading the news.
Well, I was in California this morning, but I'm now in New York. The afternoon, I was at night fun flight in the middle row on a red eye, so I'm here. But wouldn't miss this for the world. We've got just a great guest who's had a tremendous impact in the industry on like 6 or 7 different fronts. And, I sometimes, Ramsey, I think, why don't we get these people earlier? But we do this. Today we have Kim O'Brien, who's Chief Executive Officer at the Federation of Americans for Consumer Choice. So, Kim, welcome. And maybe you tell us who you are, what you're doing, and then maybe just give people your backstory. I think it's you've had a real fascinating career in this industry.
Well, I've had a long one. I don't know if it's all fascinating, but when you get enough time in, you got a lot of stuff going on. But we have the Federation is very, very absolutely focused on making sure that there's a level playing field for independent distribution. That includes marketing organizations, that includes agencies and agents. We just believe fully that without a level playing field, the security people are wonderful. They all do a good job. They do what they do well. But there are non-security people out there that really understand the insurance market. And the insurance market and what we do is the fixed guaranteed products. And the Federation of Americans for Consumer Choice really focuses on annuities, fixed life insurance, and fixed long-term care, especially the long-term care riders that are attached to the former 2 products. So that is what our focus is at the Federation, and we just want to make sure that consumers have access to that insurance expertise that agents have that is unique and probably not seen often enough in the securities industry. And we want to make sure that consumers have the choice of the advisor or the agent they want to work with. Do you want me to give you a little background or add to that?
Well, yeah, I would say choice is an interesting word. It's loaded, right? And I just came out, and you didn't say you were sort of a leader in the industry. The last time the industry faced significant regulatory changes in, because was that 2009 and 2010, Kim, correct?
2009 and 2010 was the first suitability model that was trying to replicate the FINRA model, and we were instrumental in making sure that it understood and it was informed and worked for the insurance side, because FINRA, of course, works very well for the security side. So that started, and then we got hit with 151A from the SEC in 2010.
Yeah, mammoth challenge in the industry, and you were head of NAFA at that point in time, and it really, brought, I think, the industry together and as sort of one voice, had really, had significant impact on what the business looks like today. Now, fast forward to today, it feels like it's a repeat of, that 2009 to 2011 time period. So I guess what's similar, what's different with the regulatory structure, regulatory environment that you see today?
Well, what's different about the regulatory environment today, both at the state level and the federal level, but I'll stick with your point, Paul, about the federal level, is that we have now another agency for the third time has inserted itself. During 151A, it was the SEC who wanted fixed indexed annuities. At the time, they were called equity indexed annuities. And that was what my industry, we did wrong. We called them equity indexed, and they really aren't equity indexed there because there's not just, equity in there. But we went to the fixed indexed annuity, and that was another movement just to get the name changed, so to get that understanding about the fixed aspect, the guaranteed insurance aspect of the product. But at the time, it was the SEC that wanted to make sure that these were considered securities, and that's what we fought and successfully won. We fought it on many planes, and this is very similar to the Department of Labor issue that we're fighting right now. At 151A, we fought it both at the legislative level and also through the courts, and also through just individual impact from agents and agencies throughout the industry. But we actually won it on the legislative front, which was where NAFA took the lead, with many carriers that were very supportive of the effort and assisted us all along the way. But we ended up getting, as you know, the Harkin Amendment in the Dodd-Frank bill, which declaratively said that fixed indexed annuities were not securities. So that was a huge win. Fast forward to the department, we've been dealing with the department since 2010 on this. This is their third iteration. And on this front, we're suing. FAC is suing the Department of Labor. But we also have other trades that are working on efforts on the legislative front as well. And we promote those, and we totally support those. But we felt it was important to file a lawsuit now. One, because we felt it was important to let the DOL know that we felt that they have overreached their authority as an agency. They were not given this authority from Congress through ERISA, which is required. And we also felt that the removal of what's called the Deseret letter, which was a letter that declaratively said that an insurance agent who sells an annuity is not to be considered, I'm shortening it all down, but it's not to be considered an investment advisor or a fiduciary. And we felt it was important to just step out early and get the DOL to understand that they've got a lawsuit pending, and we're going to be fighting them.
Excellent. Bruno Carnes, our host, just joined us. Bruno, welcome.
Hey, Bruno.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so yeah.
Hi, Kim. Welcome.
So Kim, maybe we just dial in a little bit on the lawsuit, because that's one of the things I've been reading, following in the paper. Maybe tell us about what you're challenging, where, and where is the lawsuit in terms of challenging the federal regulations that have been enacted.
Well, we filed in Texas. We have submitted our brief. We have three briefings scheduled, and then an oral argument. And right now, we've put our first brief in. The DOL has filed their response brief. We get to file another brief. They get to file another brief. I misstated. There's only 4 briefs. And then we have oral arguments. And oral arguments have now been pushed out. They were originally scheduled for December 14th. But the DOL has requested a delay, and everybody's agreed, and the magistrate has agreed. So we're now actually at oral arguments in January 11th.
So the path to do this, I mean, Kim, I am an attorney, but I don't claim to be one. I'm
not a lawyer either, so.
But I think you're at this point. So you filed in the state, I guess, trial level. Is that right?
Yes, they call it a magistrate.
Magistrate.
Right.
I'm sure you'll win. It gets appealed at the appellate level in Texas, goes to their Supreme Court, and then I guess it would go straight to the U.S. Supreme Court. Is that correct?
That's correct. And that's the path. We feel strongly that we'll win, And I mentioned early before we recorded, as an ex-cheerleader, I just got to believe in the victory. But if we don't, we know either party at the magistrate level will appeal. So we will be at the appellate court right after the decision by the magistrate.
And like, again, this is asking a hard question. I know Eric would give you some, Marhoon, our general counsel, would come up with a pretty clever answer to this. How long do you think this process runs? Is this a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year process?
Well, that is a good question, and it's very hard. Courts are very hard. Then we're in appeal, Paul, and that's going to take. So I think we're in it for easily another 2 years.
So can I ask a quick question? Like, what are the differences in the issues that are being contested in this lawsuit versus the prior ones that you mentioned? Is it a full replay, or are there some fundamental differences since the prior rounds?
Yes, I think so, Ramsey. That's an excellent question. We believe that what they did when they were told what they couldn't do with the Fifth Circuit decision, they just pretty much rearranged the deck chairs on the Titanic and put this preamble in place that essentially reinterpreted a new interpretation, what they call a final interpretation of the 5-part test, which essentially makes everybody a fiduciary if they have any expectation of a continued relationship with the client. And totally disregarded the Fifth Circuit decision, which was that in order to have that expectation, you have to have, a plan in place, a contract with your client, and they bypassed all that and said just any expectation of a continued relationship. So their new interpretation of the 5-part test is the source of our argument.
Yeah. Well,
then you combine that, if I just add on, if you combine that with the removal of the Deseret letter, which excluded the insurance transactions, that removal, all with the new interpretation of the 5-part test, those 2 points are the problem with this new rule that the DOL says is really not, we're really doing everything the court told us to do in the Fifth Circuit decision, and they're really not. It's just a obfuscation.
Well, I was, go ahead, Ramsey.
I'm going to say thanks for that.
Did that help?
Yeah, it helps. So I guess we'll stay tuned, and good luck with with the suit. Now, I was at the NAFA conference for 2 days. It's my Ramsey and Bruno, first time I've been there. Bruno, I don't know if have you been to NAFA? No, it was great. We talked a little bit about this before, Kim, and certainly regulatory issues were way up at the forefront of a lot of questions in the carrier roundtable. I guess this business, a lot of this business just stays the same, and few things change. I mean, if you looked at the landscape, the industry landscape today versus 10 years ago, Kim, what is it essentially the same industry, or what do you see that may be different at this point in terms of product distribution? How we're marketing, technology. What are the major changes that you think are the most biggest drivers, for the next few years?
Well, on the product side, I think I'll go 3 elements: 1 product, 1 distribution, and the 3rd carrier. On the product side, we're having a lot more entry into the marketplace. When I started, I think I counted 44 fixed index annuities, and about, if you take out the immediates, there's tons of those. But if you just go with what we used to call traditional annuities, there was about 1,200. now that fixed indexed annuity slot has exponentially increased, and the premium. I mean, when we hit 2 million in premium production in 1998, we thought that was huge, and now we're at what, 140 billion expected. So I think on the product side, we have a lot more product availability, which is another key to the independent advisor and agent, because they can offer more products. And we also have much more innovation on the products with these different indices. I think we mentioned before we went on air, there's so many more indices out there that customers can choose from, and the diversification that they can put into their fixed index portfolio is much more broader and deeper into the index marketplace. On the distribution side, what we're seeing very much is the consolidation of independent, personally owned, privately owned businesses. And we see 3 major conglomerates that are, moving people into the consolidation market. And that's new. We still have, we count about 140 individual IMOs that are still family-owned, family-run businesses. If you add life and long-term care into that, we're up at about 250, 260. So there's still a lot of small businesses that are not, sold and owned by these larger corporations, and they are corporations. So we think, very importantly, those are important. People get to make their choice of how they run their business. But the small folks that are running their, smaller and mid-sized IMOs also need an avenue and need a voice and an advocate to protect their businesses. And then the third element is the carrier element. We're seeing new carriers coming in. The names are
right.
When we changed our name from the Mutual Group to Clerica, I thought, that sounds like, a nasal drug. But these names that are coming into the market, there's a new one that just entered, I think, about last year, and there's another one. I talked to a good friend who's an IMO, very long in the industry, and he's actually been tapped to run this new carrier. So we're seeing new and smaller carriers come in. So those are the 3 things that I see changing. On that last note, if I may just add, and shut me up if you need to, the smaller companies that are coming in, and they're really the big carriers, we used to call them the big 3 A's that run the annuity marketplace. They still have a good market handle on the production, but the smaller carriers are really making a difference. And some of these smaller carriers and their product innovation are really new and different. And when I talk to our IMOs, and I talk to them all the time, they really like some of the quick-to-market, new innovative products that are coming out of these smaller carriers. And some of these smaller carriers start out and they're B-rated, they're lower rated because they're brand new, and they don't have the history and the reserving and all that stuff. So that's an important piece of our puzzle, because I think as they grow, and we've seen this, time and time again, and your company, Nassau, is a great example. As it grows, their rating grows, and you get more distribution, you get more innovation, you get more productivity, blah, 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 and it just keeps going. And I think that's a very positive thing.
Well, we're quite fortunate that we have on the call somebody who used to give those scores.
It definitely sparked many conversations in my in the last 5 years, to say the least. So I definitely agree and concur with you that those new carriers are definitely making their way into the industry fairly fast. And adding up on top of that, you have some of the reinsurers that are there to that are less on the forefront, but that play a major piece in terms of capital allocation and supporting some of those carriers. So couldn't agree more on that point.
Yeah, I'm an optimist for the change. I mean, I think the change is very positive, but there's a yin and a yang, and there's some great discussions on the panel, and the IMO discussion with some of the leading IMOs. Kim just hit on all those factors, like, wow, they like the new carriers coming in because they're quick to come up with some unique product designs, and they're building them on new technology, new platforms that where you don't have to wait, Ramsey, 12 months to get a new index into a product, which I think a lot of us are kind of locked. The cycle a lot of us are locked into. The downside is, well, Kim, do they really understand the business? Right, because you can also have pricing decisions, made by people who sort of carry the industry into places we don't want to go. So, I think we'll hopefully these people who are leading a lot of these initiatives are cautious and bring some people who've got experience in this industry and put them in the helm.
Well, that was a good point, an excellent point, and I'll use it to shout out our platform and why we think the DOL is unnecessary, because we have an unbelievable regulatory regime in our state insurance, and they're watching reserves, they're watching valuations, they're watching, and I'm on a number of different NEIC calls related to illustration modeling, valuation, reserving, and I'm not an actuary, so I don't understand it all, but we're paying attention to see if it has any impact on independent distribution. But I just really, and we know this from historical averages, history, that we rarely have a carrier that defaults or goes into insolvency, in the words of the NAIC. And the few that we've had that have gone into insolvency, all the contracts have been purchased by another insurance company, and those contracts have been honored, and those consumers have been protected. So our regulatory regime is very robust and very strong. And so I welcome these new companies because that they're going to get the oversight of the regulators in their states and in the states they operate.
Yeah, and to your point, Paul, to your point, I think the management quality and ability to build and execute, I can say for a fact that it is a consideration in terms of ratings in general, especially for those new carriers.
I'm sorry, I get so excited. One of the things we're working on at FAC is we want to change the guarantee fund law, and right now, we think the guarantee fund, the notice of the guarantee fund, you all know that work in the industry that you have to say this is not FDIC insured. But you can't say to the customer, but it is a secondary insurance. I always say annuities and life insurance already come wrapped in an insurance wrapper. They don't need a FDIC like a bank does. But in addition, of course, we all know that there is the secondary insurance of the guarantee fund, but you can't talk about that until the client has committed their money and received their contract from the insurer. And I got a call back in when was that AIG issue? I don't know, whatever year it was, when everybody was concerned because of AIG's financial issues, even though American General, the insurance arm, was not impacted whatsoever. I got a call from a woman in Florida, and she was very worried and very concerned because she had, $500,000 in an AIG contract, American General contract, and she was worried that it was in trouble. And again, if she had known early in her decision-making process that Florida, at the time, 250, blah, blah, she could have diversified that choice between annuity contracts, between annuity carriers, whatever she wanted to do if she had been aware ahead of time. So what we're working on at FAC is earlier disclosure. The whole reason we have the guarantee fund disclosure rule in place is because carriers were concerned, the high-rated carriers were concerned that low-rated carriers would just, say, don't worry about it, we're B-rated, just buy it, you're protected by the guarantee fund. So they were worried about, the sloughing off the rating and just promising the customer a guarantee fund backup. But we can do a better job in disclosure, and we can make sure they understand the rating aspect of it, as well as let them know ahead of time so they can make important choices that will help them down the road should there be an insolvency.
Yeah, I agree with you. We had a great discussion with one of your friends, Harry Stout, on that topic.
Was Harry out there?
Yeah, he was on. No, he was not there. He was on our show maybe 2 months ago. No, missed Harry. He would have been a great addition to the conference. Yeah, well, like if we were to sort of talk about products for a minute, because we talked about the distribution. There's a lot of discussion around indices. Ramsey, this will be a real interesting point of discussion for you. A lot of debate. Everybody, of course, had very different opinions on, indices or index strategies. I think there are something like 150 indices inside carriers right now. Now, is that too much? Is it too little?
I'm surprised there aren't more.
Well,
that's a lot. But I would have guessed. I would have actually guessed more. It's been a booming industry for a while.
Yeah, and so Kim, to your point, there were a lot of arguments to say, well, there are too many, it's too confusing. Then people were saying, look, the best ones haven't been invented yet. We're actually just kind of getting going and, potentially offering even sort of better diversity of protections for, the retirement savings nest eggs. I mean, where do you fall? You saw the beginning of the industry. And, I think right now it's, yeah.
Well, my thoughts are always choice. I think choice is a great thing. And back in NAFA days, I was called by an agent to tell me that I should shut down this product A. Product A was bad. Product A allowed this. You shouldn't be promoting this product. You should shut it down. Now, this product happened to go through the normal valuation, all the aspects and the filing and the requirements from the state, and they had to meet all of the filing requirements to become a quote product. And once that happens, and it's the state is every state has a very difficult product development and product compliance and product submission process. That's half of the time that it takes to develop a product, is getting it approved by the state. And it's a very, very robust and a very thorough process. So I felt strongly that, as long as it was approved by the state and went through this very, very heavy vetting, that it was a product. And we at NAFA, when I was there, it was the National Association for Fixed Annuities, so we were for it. To go to your question directly, all these indices and whatnot, I think that's great. It's a innovation. It's helpful. Agents have to now step up, I think, a little harder because it's more information, more education, more awareness, more understanding of these indices than they've been used to. But I think the carriers do an excellent job of doing that. So choice, I'm for it.
Bruno, what's your take on this?
Well, no, it's like every other business. More choice is usually a good thing. So I think that's I would agree with that. But I wanted to come to a point where Kim, you mentioned at your UN speech that investments and annuities, it's not an either or. And there is this this popular saying out there where people in our world completely understand and agree with that, but there seems to be some some philosophy within the investment community that investments are sufficient enough and annuities are not necessary. And of course, I use the word annuity in a very broad term. We all know they come in multiple flavors. But Paul mentioned the yin and the yang earlier. How do you marry the two? How do you get into get to people from all spectrum of financial services and agree that there's some sort of balance, some sort of equilibrium between those offerings and those financial vehicles?
Well, that was a very good question and a very broad question, Bruno. But I've always felt, and in fact feel strongly, that the differentiation between these two products, and regulators call annuities investments all the time, and it drives me crazy. Because annuities aren't investments, they are insurance, first and foremost. Yes, we have wonderful products that can provide additional gain and additional money on top of the guarantees. That's great. But at the end of the day, it's for the customer and the portion of their money, whether it's, and we know we have all of our carriers that we work with have limitations on how much you can put in to your annuity. But however much they want to, up to the carrier requirements that they want protected, or they want a guaranteed income stream from a rider, or from the contract itself, even without a rider, that they should be allowed to make that decision. And your question goes deeper, and I think it's a very good one, in that it's how do we get advisors to recognize that value in the customer, for the customer? How do we get the investment biased, if you will, to recognize that? And that's a harder nut, I think, because they do have a bias towards the investment accumulation. But today, in today's world, and why annuity sales are flying right now, is because of the insecurity of the marketplace and the insecurity of the political climate right now. And so sales have just been booming because obviously consumers are choosing protection and guarantees.
Yeah, well, there was a great discussion on the panel, and these were not carriers, these are IMO talking about where should product designs head. And, Kim, there was one voice very strongly saying these are contracts, they're not investments. There's no reason why we have this regulatory structure around them. Zero is our hero, in this business. And then we had another voice on the discussion saying, we should actually take stock of what's happening in the RILA market, and maybe we should have protections up to a certain point. And it's not a slippery slope leading us into investments. I mean, do you have any strong opinion about where the industry should head? Should we say we're about protecting principal and full stop, or start to compete in the independent space a little more with where the RILA designs are headed?
Well, I'm not sure I understood that question, Paul, exactly, but let me take a stab, and if I miss the mark, you can correct me back. But I do think that many agents don't do as good of a job of talking about the protections and the guarantees. They really try to sell the gain You know, this product could do, 5%, 6%. Well, our target when we built them back in 1995 was we wanted to, and the reason the whole index market became into being was because we wanted to get a little more out of the fixed, in a portfolio of the carrier. We wanted to squeeze a little bit more interest out of that the carrier portfolio, and so that's how the index product was born. And we always built them so that they could probably provide, and they have historically provided 1.5% to 2% more than a straight fixed, if you will, or traditional fixed, or whatever you want to call it, and even the MIGAs. And I think they're still hitting that mark. So I don't think we can oversell the gain part. And I think sometimes we do as an industry. And we really do need to get back to the elements of, all of the reasons people buy insurance for the protection of their home, their car. This is to protect their retirement and their income stream in retirement, or if they have enough income stream from that investment, then this is to protect that legacy gift that they're leaving behind. So protection, we think, is the whole element of our marketplace and really should be at the forefront of the sale.
Yeah.
Did I answer?
Yeah. And I think the discussion was, well, should we say you're not going to lose any of your principal, or is it okay to say we'll guarantee that you're not going to lose 90% of your principal, right? So, I mean, it's splitting hairs. I'm with you, Kim. I like the insurance guarantees. I don't know, Ramsey, we're getting close to ahead of time. Actually, I'll start with you. Bruno, any last questions or thoughts for Kim?
I think we brought it all home with your last question, so that makes perfect sense. But thank you, Kim. I think that was great, and keep the work up. I think that's you're doing a great service for all of us.
You betcha.
Ramsey,
I get to talk to the regulators. That's my fun.
Sure. So we'll be watching with great interest as you proceed with your various suits and negotiations with all. I mean, it's true. Like there's all these different bureaucracies that want to regulate the industry, and it's already got 50 states to deal with, right? I mean, it's a big burden.
It's a big burden, and what we're working on, just so I can make sure that we're not just on the federal level, we're trying to make sure that the NAIC model that we worked so hard on to make sure there were elements that were key and core to independent distributors and carriers that support independent distribution. We want to make sure those states adopt them as we wrote them, with the NAIC. So we deal state by state by state, and it's important. And real quick, Paul, on the 100% of your money is protected versus the 90, the only way you lose money is if you leave early.
Yeah.
And the surrender period, I've always argued, the surrender charge is the fairest way to the customer to charge for leaving early, because other ways you could charge are through fees through every product. This only hits the customer that chooses to leave early. Every other way in which you build a product, every other actuarial way to put money in to protect the carrier from leaving early hits everybody. But surrender charges only hits the person that leaves and chooses to leave early.
Oh, I like that. Well, hey, Kim, thanks so much for joining us. We obviously going to have you back, especially as some of these, as events progress. What's the best way for people to find out more about your organization, follow it, maybe support it if you're an independent agent?
We're at Fact Choice, so it's www.facchoice.com, and I'm Kim at factchoice.com.
Excellent. All right. Hey, Bruno, thanks. Ramsey, thanks. And
nice to see you.
Yeah, I got some great feedback and requests for future guests at Kim out at the conference, and send it to us. The people you'd like to get on, send us notes, and we'll make it happen. All right. Hey, thanks so much, and join us again next.
If you need any help, let me know.
Okay, Kim, I will take you up on that. So listen, thanks for listening. Join us again next week for another episode of That Annuity Show.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend us on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information at thatannuityshow.com.